Hello, welcome to Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs. Stuart Smith here in Reading, England. Today I'm going to set out to try to answer a single question. The question is, does DeOxit D5 contact spray damage carbon track potentiometers? Now you might be wondering why I'm even asking this question, and the reason is that I had a message from one of my viewers who watched my video on how to clean potentiometers, and of course in that video I mentioned that I used DeOxit D5, and he quite forcibly came back on the comments section of the video and said, why are you recommending D5 to people? It's known to dissolve carbon and to hence damage carbon trap potentiometers. I thought, what? That's ridiculous. I've never heard that before. And I went back to him and said, oh, I don't think you're right there. I think, it's perfectly safe. I thought I went back to him quite politely, but he came back even more strongly and even more forcibly, saying, he didn't quite call me an idiot, but basically, he accused me of spreading disinformation and lies and damaging people's gear and all sorts of stuff. So I was about to just delete the comments and move on. By the way, the comments have now been deleted. He deleted the whole thread himself. I didn't boot him off my channel at all. So I thought, well, is there any truth in what he's saying? I mean, I didn't think that it caused any problems, but I haven't done any research into it. I could be wrong. So I asked him what his sort of reasoning was about why he thought that DeOxit attacked carbon, and after a lot of backwards and forwards, his reasoning came down to three things. I want to take those one at a time and try to debunk or not this myth that he's promulgating. Right, well, the first thing was that it doesn't say on the side of the can for use with potentiometers. And therefore it obviously cannot be used with potentiometers. Why? Well, because it obviously damages them. Well, you don't need to be a logician to see that that is completely full of holes, but anyway, on the side of this can, it lists 24 things that it can be used on, and of course potentiometers isn't there, but neither is electrical contacts on my sewing machine, or 101 relay contacts, or 101 other things that it could be used on. You'd have to have, I don't know, 10 pages of A4 to list everything that DeOxit can be used on. So I think that's a red herring. The fact that it doesn't say potentiometers, who cares? All techs use this on potentiometers, and it's well known to be very effective at doing that. Okay, so let's put that one aside, and I think that one we can ignore. Now, the second reason he had was that that DeOxit, Caig they are, C-A-I-G, make a special lubricant cleaner for carbon track faders, which, by the way, they do. It's a cleaner and a lubricant. So his argument runs as follows: they make a special one, therefore this DeOxit D5 is obviously no good for carbon track potentiometers and faders. Again, I'm no logician, but I think that is not a logical position to take. Just because they make a special cleaner does not mean to say that this cleaner doesn't work equally as well on carbon track potentiometers. So I think we can get rid of that one. And anyway, that fader thing has got some lubrication in it, and I believe it's good for the slider carbon trap potentiometers. It gives a little bit of lubrication. So let's put that one to bed as well. Shoot me down in flames in the comments, by the way, if you think I'm erring anyway in this video. I've only got my own knowledge and my own kind of take on this. So then came the clincher. So I fired all this back at him and said, no, come on, you just because it doesn't say on the side, but he wouldn't have any of that. And he came back with what was the killer. He said, and anyway, it's well known that mineral spirits dissolve carbon. And I thought, okay, I immediately thought two things. Either one of those statements is wrong. Either mineral spirits does not dissolve carbon, or there isn't any mineral spirits in DeOxit D5. Now, that is, I'm going to apply my own logic to myself. That is not a scientific argument. It's what's called the argument from, I don't know, personal incredulity or something. In other words, I can't believe that DeOxit D5 dissolves carbon, therefore he must be wrong. That's not a logical argument. But anyway, let's look at the two strands of that. So, does mineral spirits dissolve carbon? That's question one. And does DeOxit D5 contain mineral spirits? I didn't think statement 2 was true, so I went and did some research and I was quite surprised. Yes, indeed, DeOxit D5 does contain mineral spirits. Now, it's a funny word, mineral spirits. It's things like white spirit that you use to clean your paintbrushes, that type of thing. Again, I'm no chemist, so forgive me if you know more than me on this one. So I was quite surprised. I thought, oh, crikey, hang on, could I be wrong here? Mineral spirits mineral spirits is in D5, so if mineral spirits dissolve carbon, he's right. Now, so then what I thought, hang on a minute, nothing dissolves carbon, does it? I mean, again, excuse my, I've got kind of a GCSE level chemistry. I seem to remember that pretty much nothing dissolves carbon. So I don't think mineral spirits does. So I went on the internet and typed in mineral spirits dissolve carbon, or mineral spirits, attacking carbon, all that sort of stuff. And indeed, what I came up with was a load of engine rebuild people, who take engines apart, and they get a lot of carbonisation around the piston rings and all, all sorts of stuff. And they're often arguing what's the best way to get rid of the carbon on the engines they're decoking. And in some of those forums, people say, I use mineral spirits. Now, of course, what's happening there is that it's not dissolving the carbon. If you've got some loose residue of carbon on any surface, actually, some particles of carbon, then, of course, a lot of things will wash that carbon off. It won't dissolve it, it'll just, clear the debris. And apparently mineral spirits is quite good for just clearing the debris. So I thought I'd put that one to bed. But what I want to do is some proper scientific, I'm sorry I'm talking so long, it's a bit boring watching me talk, but anyway, I want to do a couple of scientific experiments, pseudo-scientific experiments, to try and put this to bed once and for all. And what I've got is I've got some carbon here in the form of charcoal for sketching with, that's about as carbon as you can get. And I'm going to put half of this stick of carbon in a pot with some mineral spirit, some white spirit, and I'm going to put the other half in a pot with some deoxit, and put a bit of cling film over the top to stop the deoxit evaporating. And I'm 100% sure I know what's going to happen. We're going to come back and find this carbon absolutely intact, and not even a hint of any kind of dark, soluble, bits of carbon in the solute. But anyway, we've got to do the experiment. And then, so let's do that experiment now. Now, the other thing I want to say is that for the last 6 months, I have been conducting an experiment of my own, not related to this. Let me just go and grab the apparatus. I wasn't going to show you this until the end of the year. In fact, I'll make a video of this at the end of the year. Now, what I've done 6 months ago was to mount 5 pots onto a bracket, and I've labelled them up, and they're labelled up Control, WD-40, a generic switch cleaner, alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and deoxit. Now, what I've been doing is roughly every week, when I can remember, spray each of these, apart from the Control, of course, with the relevant cleaner, and then rotate each Control 20 times like this. The object being, I want to see at the end of a year what condition the controls are in, and maybe put to bed another myth about WD-40. Now, I'd never recommend WD-40 to clean controls, but of course the word out on the street is that it damages controls, it leaves a horrible residue, it'll ruin your controls. Well, does it? I don't know, I'd like to find out. So I'm going to take these pots apart after a year and have a look at them and do some other tests. But this has just come up, and we have a nice little thing here. We've got this pot I've used every week for the last 6 months. I've sprayed deoxit on it. It's been soaked in deoxit for 6 months. Now we're going to take that pot apart and have a look. Not quite sure how I'm going to show you that at the moment. You might just have to take my word for it. I don't really have a microscope I can link up to the monitor. But anyway, we're going to do that as well. So we're going to put some carbon into some pots with some mineral spirit and some deoxit, and we're going to have a look at that pot there and see what's what. But however, there's a kind of kicker here about why I am incredulous about this claim. Thousands, no, let me retract that. Probably millions of people worldwide have used DeOxit D5, I'm talking about now, on their pots in their guitar amplifiers and that sort of thing. They've used it for decades, not 1 year, 6 months, or decades. I have never heard of a single person who has complained on the internet, another pot ruined by DeOxit D5. Look at the state of this pot, it hardly moves, the track's all broken up, the track's completely dissolved, DeOxit ruined my amplifier. Not one single person have I ever seen do that. I'm obviously in contact with a lot of techs, and a lot of techs are watching this. I know as I watch their channels. Thank you very much, guys and gals, for your wonderful channels. And I bet you none of the techs watching this have ever had a problem with DeOxit D5. Now that alone, that vast body of empirical evidence tells you there's something screwy about the claim that D5 can damage pots. But that is empirical evidence. Let's do a couple of experiments, and then finally I'm going to contact, if I can, get through to Caig's technical department and see if they know of anything at all that supports this rumour. So let's get on with it. Okay, here we go. I've got a couple of little pots here, all cleaned out, and I'm going to break this carbon charcoal thing into two. I'll just give it a bit of a wipe to get any surplus carbon off. One goes in there, one goes in there, and I've got some white spirit, which is mineral spirit. So I've looked up that white spirit is in fact a mineral spirit. Not quite sure what that means, not being a chemist, but there you go. So I'll put that in there, and then we're going to use some DeOxit D5, and I hope this, I don't know whether this will evaporate too quickly. It's not really a very high volatility D5 actually, so I'm hoping if I can put a fair bit in there like that, and put some cling film over it just to try and do a bit to stop the evaporation. And now I'm just going to leave those for 24 hours, and may as well put a bit of cling film over there as well, I guess. Stop smelling the whole workshop out. By the way, let me show you my cool cling film wrapping machine. I got this in a shop, and it's absolutely brilliant. You just pull the cling film out and then go ka-chunk with that, and it chops it off. Really brilliant thing. Don't know what it's called. Oh, Wrap Master 1000. I don't receive any royalties or anything. Anyway, it's quite a good piece of kit, that. We're going to leave those for 24 hours now, and I hope you'll agree that if in 24 hours of being completely submerged in D5 we see no hint whatsoever of any carbon dissolving, which I don't think for a minute we will, then we can assume that it's pretty safe. Meanwhile, while that's cooking, I'm going to take this pot off of here and use my high-powered eyeglass and see if I can see anything at all untoward about that pot. So I'm sorry, I may just have to report that to you because I don't think I can show you a microscopic view. There we go. Okay, good. See you in a bit. Hang on, that's fizzing. It's bubbling. It's giving off. It's giving off. Oh no, it isn't. No. Okay. I thought whilst we were leaving that lot cooking, we could have a look at the pot here. So this is the pot that's had the DeOxit on it for the last 6 months. One thing I notice is it's sort of slightly oily, sticky on the back. I mean, it has been soaked with the stuff dozens of times, and it's very loose and smooth. So in other words, that feels like it's had WD-40 on it rather than DeOxit. It's incredibly well lubricated. So anyway, that's just that. Now to get a pot apart, you just take these little lugs here and bend them straight. If you've never seen inside a pot before, this might be interesting for you. There's nothing complicated, of course. It's just a variable resistor. Right, there you go. And now the pot will come apart like that, look. The back will come off. And that little thing there is the wiper that wipes around the carbon track, which hopefully you can see. Like that. So basically you've just got a printed carbon track going round from this connector to this connector, and when the wiper is in this position, of course, the middle is connected to there via virtually no resistance, so you've got no resistance there. And as you rotate this, look, it's halfway around the track, so this wiper is connected to this, and this, by the way, via that resistor and that resistor, so sort of halfway. And then when you get to full volume like that, then these two are virtually shorted together, and there's a big resistance between here and here, because now the current passes through the wiper all the way around the carbon track and back down to here. Quite a simple little thing, I think you'll agree. So what I'm going to do now is get my eyeglass on there and have a really good look at the carbon track and see if I can see any kind of residue or, you know, dissolving of the track or anything. I know I won't, but let me just do that. No, the track is absolutely pristine, and no sign whatsoever of any loose carbon deposits or carbon dust or anything like that whatsoever. It looks brand new to me. So I think that has debunked this myth without particularly going much further. But we'll carry on with the rest of the experiment anyway. And then we'll see what Caig have to say. We'll, because they must be fed up with hearing these kind of rumours from people who have a little knowledge. See, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. I have a little knowledge, and I try not to, you know, pretend I've got more than I have. But a lot of people with a little knowledge are very happy to wade in on all kinds of things about which they don't really know. They've just heard a rumour, or they have a belief, or they've got some facts wrong or something. And there's nothing wrong with having your facts wrong, as long as you're not wading in on the internet and persuading a load of other people that you're right. So there you go. That can now go back on its back in its experimental hole here, and then in another 6 months we will take all these pots apart, and I'll get my microscope out, and we'll have a look and see. We'll also do some electrical tests to make sure the pots are nice and smooth and are not bumpy or producing, you know, little bumps of resistance. And that'll be very interesting, I think, to see that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, you know, does WD-40 cause a residue on pots? Of course, what this experiment is doing, I'll just zoom out a little bit. What this experiment is showing is whether particular solvents and things damage the pots. It says nothing at all about how good they are at cleaning the pots, and that's quite a difficult experiment to do, because I'd need a lot of very dirty pots, which are kind of hard to get hold of. And then how do you measure how well something has cleaned a pot? It's quite difficult, really. But anyway, I'm more interested to put to bed some myths about whether WD-40 leaves a residue, and whether DeOxit dissolves carbon, and, you know, whether generic switch cleaners are rubbish and destroy your pots and all that kind of thing. Interesting, I think. Here is my crib sheet, which I started on the 1st of January 22, and you see I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17, 18 squirtings, if you like, each one. So each of these pots has been treated 18 times with its relevant thing. So by the time we get to January next year, we'll have 36 or 40 applications, and I think that should be enough to prove whether something is actually damaging a control. There you go. So now we can bring our little pots back here, and we'll just leave those to cook. I'm quite pleased to see the WD-40 look isn't evaporating or anything, so that'll give us a nice kind of test about whether it's munching away at that carbon. See you soon. Right, here we are about 20 hours later, and I can see immediately that nothing's happened here, not that I expected it to. So this is the deoxit, and it's still quite liquid, which is good. And you can see that there's not a hint of anything dissolving there, or no carbon deposits in the deoxit. Nothing whatsoever, just as I'd expect really. And then for comparison, the white spirit, pure mineral spirit, again you can see that yeah, the carbons are completely intact. There's a bit of junk in the bottom of there, but that's because I'm afraid my white spirit wasn't particularly pure. But that's not carbon in the bottom of there. There's little bits of float, as you can see, and the carbon's completely unaffected. So there you go. I think, you know, if you'd soaked it, if there's any chance whatsoever of deoxit attacking carbon, and you put that pure carbon in deoxit for 24 hours, you would definitely see some beginnings of attack there. And anyway, I'm pretty sure, chemists, please correct me, I don't think carbon can be dissolved in anything. Happy to be wrong on that. Okay, so finally I did write to Caig, and so I have their email here. Rather than read it out to you, which can be a little bit irksome, I'm going to just put it under the camera and give you a chance to read it for yourself. So this is from Caig Technical Department, and this is what they say. I will zoom in on that bit first, and I'll just scroll it down. There we go. Okay, hope you've had time to read that. So basically he's saying that, of course, if there's loose particles of carbon on something, then the solvent will flush it away. Of course it will. I imagine pretty much anything will do that, but it's not dissolving the surface. So I don't know about you, I think we can just call that myth busted, and move on with our lives. I hope the person who removed his comments from my videos watches this. I'm not trying to get at him or anything. You know, I've been wrong many times in the past. I mean, for example, 1962, I think it was, February, Wednesday afternoon. I think I was wrong about something. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, you know, we can all get wrong ideas about things, but the key is to think it through and find out the facts, and then to correct your mistaken ideas. So I'm hoping that he hasn't stalked off into the night and will actually watch this and realise that that actually it's a myth. So the myth that we've busted, I believe, tell me if you think I'm wrong, is that Caig DeOxit D5 eats carbon trap potentiometers. That is a busted myth, and I am 100% confident that this excellent product, which I use all the time and is used by hundreds of thousands of service techs worldwide, is perfectly safe to use on carbon trap potentiometers and indeed metals, plastics and carbon. So perfectly safe, and in my experience it's the best thing to use as well. I've tried isopropyl alcohol, injecting with a syringe, and it doesn't seem to clean the pot as well as this. I don't know why, but it just doesn't. Such that I thought I could save myself the money on this and just get a big pot of isopropyl alcohol and use that. But I've used it on a few very scratchy pots and it hasn't really done the job. As soon as I squirt this stuff in, bang, it solves it immediately. So this is absolutely magic for pots. I'm sure generic cleaner works as well, but I don't want to mess around, and I recommend this. I use it myself. I'm getting no benefit. I'm not even getting a free can of DeOxit from Caig. I get no sponsorship of any description for anything. I get absolutely zero money for my channel and zero sponsorship and zero goodies, or literally nothing. So you can trust that anything I say to you is, at least my experience, is good. Oh, by the way, look on the side of here, 60 years. So it's been used for 60 years. So where are all the people who are saying, you ruined my amplifier? There aren't any. Myth busted. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next video.